The alarm screamed through every corridor of Kepler Station. Red lights flashed against the metal walls as thousands of beings ran for their lives. Commander Veltara pressed her forearms against the command sense main console, her insect-like eyes scanning the tactical display. What she saw made her heart sink. 47 enemy ships surrounded the station. The Drachore Empire had come in force, their black warships forming a perfect circle around Kepler Station like hungry wolves. Around cornered prey. Their massive dreadnoughts bristled with weapons, while smaller attack ships darted between them like deadly fish. "Commander, our defense fleet is gone," reported Lieutenant Keshwa, his crystalline body glowing pale blue with fear. All 12 ships destroyed in the first wave. Tara's antenna twitched. 12 good ships and their crews wiped out in minutes. The Drachore had struck without warning, appearing from fold space like ghosts. No declaration of war, no demands, just death from the void. "What about the distress signal?" she asked. "Broadcasting on all frequencies," said Communications Officer Yulin, her amphibious skin glistening with nervous sweat. "But the nearest cooperative fleet is 3 weeks away." 3 weeks. They had maybe 3 days before the Drachore broke through their shields. Velta looked around the command center at faces from a dozen different worlds. Zephyrians like herself with their compound eyes and quick minds. The crystal-bodied Vorak who could interface directly with computer systems. A quarry who could breathe both air and water. A few others from smaller colonies. All of them were about to die. "Incoming transmission," Yulton announced. "It's from the Drachore flagship." The main screen flickered to life. War Admiral Theknosh appeared, his scaled reptilian face cold as space itself. Battle scars crisscrossed his snout and his yellow eyes held no mercy. "Kepler Station." His voice rumbled through the speakers. "I am War Admiral Theknosh of the Drachore Third Fleet. You will surrender immediately and evacuate all personnel to the docking bays. Any resistance will result in the complete destruction of your station." Tara stepped forward. "This is Commander Veltara. Kepler Station is a civilian facility under galactic cooperative protection. Your attack violates 17 interstellar treaties." Theknosh laughed a sound like grinding metal. "Treaties are for the weak. You have 72 hours to comply. After that, we will take what we want from your wreckage." The screen went dark. Silence filled the command center. Then, Chief Engineer Cork's crystals chimed softly, breaking the quiet. "Commander, they want the quantum crystal mines. Those deposits power half the cooperative's outer colonies. How long can our shields hold?" Veltara asked. Korak's body flashed through several colors as he calculated. "At current bombardment levels, perhaps 4 days. But they're not using full power yet. When they do," his light dimmed. 2 days, maybe less." Dr. Solara's webbed hands worked at her medical console. "We have 40,000 civilians on this station. Families, children. The evacuation ships can only hold 8,000. Math was simple and terrible. Most of them would die here. Through the station's thick windows, Tara could see the DRA ships positioning themselves. They moved with practiced precision like they'd done this many times before. Probably because they had. The Drachore Empire had been expanding for decades, crushing anyone who stood in their way. "What about fighting back?" asked Security Chief Nakta, his massive form casting shadows across the room. His species, the Garaki, were natural warriors. "We have defensive weapons against 47 warships." Balara shook her head. "We might damage a few, but they'll reduce us to scrap metal." The first energy blast struck the station shields. The lights flickered, and everyone felt the vibration through the deck plates. Then another blast, and another. The Drachore weren't waiting. They'd started their bombardment early. "All civilian personnel to inner shelters," Veltara ordered. "Emergency protocols in effect. All off-duty security to the civilian levels. Help with the evacuation." Her crew scattered to their tasks. Valara remained at her post, watching the tactical display. The Drachore ships fired in rotation, never letting the shields rest. Each blast drained their power reserves a little more. She thought about the distress signal racing through space at light speed. By now, it had probably reached the nearest cooperative relay station. Officers somewhere were reading reports, making plans, preparing fleets. But space was vast and help was far away. In the civilian sectors, families huddled in emergency shelters. Parents held their children close while emergency workers tried to maintain calm. Some cried, others prayed to whatever gods their species believed in. A few just stared at the walls, waiting for the end. The Aqua gathered around Dr. Zalara's assistant, listening to old stories about heroes from distant worlds. The Vorak younglings created small light patterns to comfort each other. Zahirian parents clicked softly to their love. Ancient songs that spoke of home and safety. But safety was something Kepler Station no longer offered. In engineering, Korak worked desperately to boost shield strength. His crystalline fingers danced across control surfaces, redirecting power from non-essential systems. Life support, artificial gravity, even the food processors. Everything went to the shields. They could live without hot meals. They couldn't live without protection. From the vacuum of space, how much longer? Asked his assistant, a young Vorak named Silvira. Unknown. Korak replied, his body flashing frustrated orange. The Drachore use focused plasma cannons. Very efficient, very deadly. Our shields were designed to stop asteroids and solar radiation, not military weapons. Another blast shook the station stronger this time. The Drachore were increasing their fire rate. On the command deck, Veltara received reports from across the station. Structural damage on levels 12 and 15. Power grid fluctuations. In the mining sector, 3 families trapped in a collapsed corridor. The problems multiplied with each enemy salvo. Commander Yolton called out, "I'm picking up something strange on long-range sensors." What kind of strange? Explosions. Big ones way out past the system edge. Could be natural phenomena or maybe ship drives failing. Veltara barely looked up from her damage reports. Probably debris from other battles. The Drachore have been busy lately. She didn't notice the pattern in those distant explosions. Didn't recognize the signature of a ship dropping. Out of fold space at impossible speeds. The sensors were focused on the immediate threat. Not whatever might be happening in the empty darkness beyond. The bombardment continued. Hour after hour, the enemy ships fired their weapons. The station's shields flickered with each impact, growing weaker. Emergency teams rushed from crisis to crisis, fighting fires and sealing hull breaches. As the first day ended, Veltara stood in her quarters, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, help was coming. Ships with good crews and powerful weapons. But they were so far away. And the Drachore were right here. She pressed one hand against the window. The glass was cold, like the space beyond. Like the future that waited for everyone on Kepler Station. In 2 days, maybe less, those shields would fail. The Drachore would board the station, taking what they wanted and destroying the rest. Unless something miraculous happened. 40,000 beings would die in the darkness between the stars. Veltara didn't believe in miracles. She believed in duty in protecting those under her command for as long as possible, even if that wasn't very long at all. Outside, the enemy ships continued their patient work of destruction. And in the deep void beyond, something held toward them through the night. War Admiral Technosh stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Bone Crusher, watching Kepler Station burn. Not literally burning. There was no fire in space, but the station's shields flared with each plasma blast like a dying star. Soon those shields would fail, and he would have another victory to report to the High Command. Status report, he commanded, his clawed hands clasped behind his back. Shields down to 60%, reported his weapons officer. At current rate of fire, they will collapse in 36 hours. Theknosh nodded. Perfect timing. The Drachore way was slow, methodical destruction. Let the enemy watch death approaching. Let them feel helpless. Fear made them weaker, more likely to surrender valuable information. Any word from their evacuation ships? 8 small transports launched. We destroyed them as ordered. Good. Technosh's yellow eyes glowed with satisfaction. No one escapes. No one carries word of our presence here. The War Admiral had crushed 43 worlds in his career. Space stations, planetary colonies, even entire star systems, all had fallen to his patient tactics. He would bombard them until their defenses cracked, then send in boarding parties to claim whatever resources remained. Kepler Station would be no different. Inside the dying station, Chief Engineer Korak worked in the deepest levels of the engineering section. His crystalline body pulsed with stress patterns as he rerouted power from system to system. The shield generators were running beyond safe limits. But safe limits didn't matter anymore. Korak, his assistant, Silvira, called out. The primary fusion reactor is showing stress fractures. How long before failure? 18 hours, maybe 20. Korak's body flashed angry red. The reactor was their heart. Without it, the shields would die instantly, and the Drachore would punch through the hull like paper. But if he pushed it too hard, it might explode and take half the station with it. Reduce shield strength by 5%, he ordered. Route the saved power to reactor cooling. It bought them time. Not much, but every minute mattered. 3 levels up, Dr. Solara moved through the medical bay like a ghost. Her amphibious features were pale with exhaustion. She'd been working for 20 hours straight, treating injured civilians and preparing for the casualties that would come when the shields failed. A young Zephyrian larvae sat on one of the medical beds, its tiny arms wrapped around a stuffed animal from Earth. The toy was old and worn, a gift from some human trader years ago. The child didn't understand what was happening, only that the adults were scared. Will the monsters hurt us? The larvae asked in its chirping voice. Solara knelt beside the bed, her webbed hands gentle. The grown-ups won't let that happen. It was a lie. When the Drachore came, there would be no protection. But the child needed hope, even if hope was false. In the command center, Commander Veltara studied enemy fleet positions. The Drachore had formed a perfect sphere around the station, their ship spaced precisely to prevent any escape. They'd done this before, many times. Commander called Lieutenant Kashawa. I've been analyzing their attack patterns. They're following standard siege protocol. Systematic bombardment until structural collapse. How standard? Very. The Drachore Military Academy probably teaches this exact formation. Keshwa's crystalline form dimmed with worry. I've seen records of their previous conquests. They always use the same tactics. Veltara's antenna twitched thoughtfully. Always. Yes. Same ship positions, same firing patterns, same timing. They are very predictable. Predictable can be useful. But useful for what? Her tiny remaining defense force couldn't fight 47 warships. Even if she knew exactly what the enemy would do next. Knowledge without power meant nothing. The station shuddered under another barrage. Emergency lights flickered in the corridors as power fluctuations rippled through the electrical grid. In the civilian shelters, people held each other tighter. Communications Officer Yulin looked up from her console. Commander, those sensor readings from the system edge are getting stronger. What kind of readings? Hard to tell. The interference from the bombardment is scrambling long-range sensors. But it looks like fold space distortions. Big ones. Veltara frowned. Fold space was how ships traveled faster than light, creating temporary tunnels through higher dimensions. But the distortions Yulin was detecting were massive. Far larger than any normal ship should produce natural phenomena. Maybe, or Yulton hesitated. The computer suggests it might be a very large ship or multiple ships traveling at extremely high velocity. How high? Higher than safety regulations allow. Much higher. Every species in the galactic cooperative followed strict rules about fold space travel. Enter too fast and the stresses could tear a ship apart. Exit too close to a gravity well and you risked catastrophic collision. The math was well understood and the safety margins were generous. Could be a cooperative fleet. Velta amused. Maybe they're pushing their engines to reach us faster. But even as she said it, she didn't quite believe it. Cooperative commanders were careful, methodical. They followed procedures and protocols. None of them would risk their ships and crews with reckless fold space maneuvers. On the Bone Crusher, Theknosh received similar sensor reports from his science officer. The Drachore had detected the fold space anomalies hours ago, but dismissed them as irrelevant. Probably stellar activity. The science officer suggested, or perhaps debris from battles in adjacent systems. How long until the station's shields fail? 32 hours at current bombardment rate. Continue the attack. Ignore the sensor ghosts. It was a decision that would haunt Theknosh for the rest of his very short remaining life. Deep in Kepler Station civilian section's managing director, Hunper coordinated evacuation efforts. His people, mostly office workers and their families, helped load emergency supplies and organized shelter assignments. It was busy work keeping minds occupied while death circled overhead. Director called one of his assistants. The children want to know if help is coming. Hunter looked at the sea of young faces around him. Dozens of species all looking to him for answers he didn't have. The Galactic Cooperative was vast and powerful, but space was vaster. Help might be coming, but it wouldn't arrive in time. Yes, he said finally. Help is coming. Another lie. But sometimes lies were kinder than truth. Back in the command center, the sensor readings were getting stronger. Whatever was causing the fold space distortions was moving fast, heading directly toward their system. Too fast for safety, too fast for sanity. Time to arrival, Veltara asked. Yelton worked at her calculations. If these readings are accurate, and if it's actually a ship, 14 hours. 14 hours. The station's shields would fail in 32. If help was coming, it would arrive to find wreckage and corpses floating in space. Send a message, Vila ordered. All frequencies, maximum power. Tell whoever's coming that they're flying into a war zone. 47 Drachore ships fully armed and hostile. The message burst from Kepler stations. Transmitters racing across space at light speed. But the approaching ship, if it was a ship, was still in fold space, isolated from normal communications. The warning would arrive too late to do any good. As the station's second day under siege began, the bombardment intensified. The Drachore had grown impatient with their slow progress. More ships joined the attack, focusing their fire on key shield generators. In engineering, alarms screamed as systems failed one by one. Korak and his team raced to repair what they could. But they were fighting a losing battle. The station was dying around them, one circuit at a time. Korak, Sila shouted over the noise. The main shield generator is overloading. Shut it down. Switch to backup power. Backup is already at maximum. The shields flickered and dimmed. For a moment, the station was completely defenseless. Then the backup systems engaged, but they were weaker. Much weaker. On his flagship, Technosh smiled as he watched the enemy shields falter. Increase bombardment rate. Target their power stations. I want this finished within 18 hours. The Drachore ships obeyed, their weapons glowing brighter as they poured destruction into Kepler Station. The end was approaching fast, but in the void beyond, something else was approaching faster. Captain Elena Vasquez gripped her command chair as the TFS. Retribution screamed. Through fold space at velocities. That would have terrified any sane commander. The ship groaned around her. Metal and composites stressed beyond their design limits. Red warning lights bathed the bridge in hellish light. Captain called her first officer. Commander Jackson Hayes. We are pushing the engines at 130% capacity. Any higher and we risk catastrophic failure. Noted, Elena replied, her dark eyes fixed on the tactical display. Athena, time to emergence. The ship's artificial intelligence responded immediately. Her synthetic voice calmed despite the chaos. 4 hours, 23 minutes to combat emergence. Captain. Current probability of successful fold space exit 27%. Elena nodded. 27% wasn't great odds, but it was better than the odds facing Kepler Station. She'd read the distress signal, seen the tactical analysis. 47 Drachore warships against a mining station. It would be a massacre unless someone intervened. The Terran Defense Force had protocols for situations like this. Contact High Command. Request orders. Assemble a proper fleet response. Follow the chain of command. Do everything by the book. Elena had thrown the book out the airlock 6 days ago. Chief Torres, she called to her engineering officer. How are our systems holding up? Chief Petty Officer Maria Torres looked up from her console. Her weathered face grim. Fusion reactors are running hot but stable. Inertial dampeners are at maximum. But we are still pulling 8GS. Life support is creative. We are recycling everything, including the coffee.